Welcome, Texas TDA Inspectors. Welcome to the End User Tools Presents. I say Lymantria dispar, but I'm specific to European gypsy moth, which is what I'm told you collect on. There is Asian and European is what applies to you folks. Some of you took advantage of renaming yourselves. I'm going to go ahead and take these instructions down. So last few minutes for everyone to rename yourselves in Zoom. I'm going to get that out of here. We're going to be talking about data collection using ArcGIS field maps. And I also had a little poll up here. I'm going to give you a little 3-second countdown to finish up answering, or if you want to throw in your hat to the poll. I asked you to tell me how you prepared for today's training. Some suggestions were thrown at you to be sure of survey protocol. That would be Anthony Man-Son-Hing, that is your point person for survey protocol as the National Operations Manager here with PPQ. There's some ArcGIS field maps training that was provided that will really be helpful to help you tie in how PPQ uses this application. Making sure that you have access to the correct map and to the training map for today, and downloading a map area. And I see some of you were able to get all of that done. And then there's a little other section. Does anyone want to tell me, maybe in the chat box, or if you want to raise your hand, what other prep? I see maybe 2 or 3 of you chose other. If anyone wants to tell me what other means to you, I'd love to know. I always throw other in because I never assume to know everything. I might have missed something that you do normally. And then the second question was how you plan to collect mobile data using what device. And it looks like a pretty even split actually between iPhones and iPads. So I will be sure to show you on my iPhone what that looks like and my iPad, and we'll make sure that you get a good view of both of those. So I'm going to go ahead and end this poll, and thank you to all of you who submitted your responses. That helps me out quite a bit. I see there's another answer collected last year with ArcGIS on the iPhone. Okay, that's great. Thank you for sharing that. You would not have collected using field maps. This is a brand new app, but if you use the ArcGIS collector application, boy, is it similar. So you're definitely set up for an easy run this year. If you used collector last year, the field maps application is pretty similar. So thanks for sharing that, AJ. Thank you so much. I'm going to put 2 little links in the chat box for us all, and I'd like to show you what those are, just to make sure you know where some resources are right off the bat. So I'm going to drag this over here and give you the view. The first link there is this mobile data collection tools webpage. This is the public-facing APHIS website, and a page that you all can access at any time from any web browser. And it's just an excellent tool for all things that are produced by PPQ to collect data. All training support can be found here. There's some general training documents, and you were specifically kind of pointed to this ArcGIS field maps document. There's a user guide here on this page. There are pest program specific training documents available specific to gypsy moth, and the difference between Asian and European is delineated right here. So you would be European gypsy moth, and there is a user manual and a quick reference guide. The user manual is going to walk through most of the things I will today as well, but with screen captures and reference points for you there. And then the quick reference is just 1 page. It's meant to be like a little cheat sheet you take out into the field once you feel like you got it under your wings, but you just kind of want something as a reference. That's this quick reference page. Going back 1 page back to this main page. So the top half is all document related, and the bottom half is all videos. And some of you may have noticed that the video that we are recording this training today, and that video will show up down here in the bottom half under the video gallery. And they're all kind of listed as the latest in kind of up at top, but you also have some categories here, and pest program is one of them. You can see we've got a previous gypsy moth training, which covered both Asian and European gypsy moth. And then also under foundations, this is where you might find, if you want to kind of jump in, there's 10 videos in little bite-sized pieces on ArcGIS field maps. So if you forget how to sign in, for instance, signing in is covered in a video all by itself there. And you can just jump in and catch those if you haven't already. And this video series was recommended to you to watch before this training. So hopefully many of you have already taken advantage of that, but these are here for you should you need a refresher or if you haven't already. So keep track of this website. The second link I threw into that chat is a training quiz. And you can see this quiz is very specific to you all for Texas TDA inspectors, and it is specific to the European gypsy moth map. And the tricky part is this third question asking for your email address. You'll have to type that in with care, and if so, then when you complete this quiz, you'll get an automated email that just says you completed this training. So that may or may not be helpful to you to have that to pass on to your supervisor, or just maybe to even put in a little folder as like a little accomplishment for the quarter or whatever you need. But what it does for me is it lets me know you attended this course. It also lets me know whether you were able to answer some of the major points that I wanted to get across. So it helps me out a ton and gives you that little email confirmation that you completed it. And I'm giving it to you now because I don't mind you opening this quiz and taking it right along with us as we go through these points. So it's totally fine by me if you open the quiz and take it along with me as you find the answers. It's really meant to be kind of a little like knowledge check-in rather than a hard test. So don't let this quiz stress you out. That's the last thing on my mind. And I'm totally fine with you kind of walking through the quiz as we talk about things. So these two links here are in the chat for you all, and wanted to make sure you had that clear for yourself right off the bat. All right, so what are we going to talk about today? We're going to talk about data collection using the ArcGIS field maps application for European gypsy moth, and specifically for you Texas TDA inspectors. Some of the things that maybe last year were difficult or a little bit of an issue we're going to cover, we're going to get to, and there will definitely be time for you to ask questions as well. So a couple things that you all have that most European gypsy moth folks don't is you have a few more points of contact. Present here today, I see Carol Motlock, I think I see Carol M, and there's also Matthias Marcos and Douglas Winter, who are your Texas points of contact. And then Anthony Man-Son-Hing is the National Operations Manager for gypsy moth for the nation, and so he would be a great contact too. But I'll give you a lot more contacts down the road as we get moving. Firstly, the biggest thing for you to sorry, asthma's getting me, guys. But the biggest thing for you to sort is the two maps. And there is an Asian gypsy moth and a European gypsy moth data form. This here is the form that you all want. It's the European gypsy moth data form. And really there's not a lot different. The title of the map is pretty clear. You'll see European or Asian. But this form itself kind of gives you a little clue in. Here's where it gets a little different right about here. And so I'm going to pull up the Asian gypsy moth form. And there's Asian, and see right under habitat now, instead of just jumping to agency, which is down here below, we've got these 4 fields. Let me give it a little bracket that only appear on the Asian gypsy moth form. And so if you see trap density, treatment, survey type, port name ought to really tip you off for Asian gypsy moth. That means you're in the wrong form. So be really careful that you are collecting data in the correct map, which should be the European one. Should be this one without these bracketed fields. So just to get that clear for you, what are we going to talk about today? We're going to talk about this new app, the Field Maps app, a little bit. Some of you already feel pretty comfortable since you used Collector last year. We're going to talk about where these maps are hosted, how to sign into them and sign out. And previously, my group would host a training version, an exact copy, and name it training for folks like us to demo, to do exercises in, to play around, to get comfortable in, and we would name them a training map. This year, we're required to host them in a stage environment. And what that means for you really is that instead of signing in using that enterprise, or we call it production URL, you'll sign into a stage URL. And we'll talk about the difference there and how to be careful about entering data in the right URL and signing in and out. There's also a disconnected workflow we'll overview. For those using iPhones, that may be less useful, or you may not use a disconnected workflow, but it's there. We'll talk about the basics of a trapping workflow as it kind of pertains to field maps, how it's viewed in field maps. And we'll look at the data form itself. And we'll do a little practice together. For those of you who have done the homework and you're prepared and ready to go, you're welcome to do this with me. I will talk you through it. I will show you the step, and then I will give you a minute or two to try it out for yourself. And lastly, we're going to talk about some caution areas. Just by the time we get to caution areas, they tend to be a review of things we've already pointed out, but we want to really grind them in and make sure that you got them. So that's the plan for today. Starting with the new Field Maps application. Now, Field Maps, as I said, we have training available, and I really encourage you to take advantage of that at least once. I think if you take the time to watch all 10 videos in a row, they take you about an hour. I find it pretty easy to do 2 or 3 at a time and then maybe come back to them. Maybe you can dedicate the hour and just really dig in. But I would recommend doing the training video series at least one time, and then make sure that you really feel comfortable and confident. And remember, that can be found on that Mobile Data Collection Tools website. Now, what is Field Maps? I mentioned Collector being what it was similar to, and that's because that's what the company really built it upon. It's built upon the same code foundation of Collector. And then these other 4 applications, Explorer, Tracker, Navigator, and Workforce, are all kind of going away and lending functionality to this Field Maps app. So it's really a really robust application that's absorbing 5 previous mobile applications. And maybe some of you have used a couple of these others. Collector is the most common, which is handy because that's really what it's built upon. And I will also say that the European Gypsy Moth map is very kindly similar to last year. So if it's something you did last year, like was mentioned in our chat here by AJ, you're going to feel like it looks pretty much the same. We've gone very gentle on using some of the functionality that's been added. Signing in to Field Maps looks about like this. When you first open Field Maps, you've got the option to sign in with ArcGIS Online or sign in with ArcGIS Enterprise. Here at PPQ, we always use sign in with ArcGIS Enterprise. The Enterprise portal is protected by FedRAMP moderate securities, so it protects sensitive data. So you will always tap sign in with ArcGIS Enterprise. And the first time that you do that, you'll end up with a message that you'll end up with the option to specify a new URL or scan code. And I know that Douglas Winters is going to provide that code to scan, and we can have him show that later or check in with him. But really, it's not that hard to specify a new URL. You have to type it in with care. It's available in that manual that I showed you earlier, that document that you can kind of type it in. And once you do type it in, Field Maps holds on to that URL. So after ever after, you'd get something kind of like this. So I still have the option to specify a new URL or scan a code, but it's held on to that URL I previously typed in, and then I can just go ahead and tap that on the screen. So that kind of gives me like an easy cheat from then on. It's really a one-time entry to make that connection. So having mentioned this URL, maps.mrp.usda.gov/ArcGIS, this is probably a great time to talk about that separation between that training version. So I've kind of broken it down here for you. There's the official data collection URL, which is the one you just saw, maps.mrp right here. And then we have a stage environment, maps-stg or stage.mrp. And this one is where that copy or the training version of that map is held. And we really do want you to have that option. I'm going to just give some little boxes around it here so you see the little difference. We still have MRP, but we've got -STG. What's important to note about this is that you are really encouraged to use these training maps to practice, to show others, to play around, to feel really comfortable with the map itself and the data form. And in fact, I'll use it today because I'm demonstrating. What's important is that only official data should go in this production or this MRP portal, and only training or play data should go in this stage portal. So you do not want to accidentally be still in a training map and enter real data, and vice versa. You don't want fake data or play data to end up in the official data collection map. So when in doubt, sign out. That's my best advice. But there are a couple things that kind of indicate to you right away you're in the stage or the training maps. They are all titled in all caps, training, right from the start, and then the rest of the map name. The background or the base layer underneath is kind of boring in a training map. It's just a light gray, whereas there's imagery in our official data collection map. And there's a few other things. So I'll show you when I show you it on my iPad or my device, what that looks like. But if you are ever in doubt, sign out and be sure you've signed into the correct URL to collect real data. So no real data in a training map, no play data in the official URL. So that's a question on your quiz if you found that already. This disconnected mode workflow. If you're using an iPad, this is especially helpful because a lot of iPads don't have cellular data plans. We turn the automatic sync off and manually sync this way, and it takes a little bit of planning. You can do this in an iPhone as well, although the iPhone then kind of fights you because it wants to connect. But the way to do this is in the office before heading out, connect to a reliable Wi-Fi, download a map area, and once that is in place, you can disconnect from Wi-Fi, go on out and collect data all day, come back to where you have that reliable Wi-Fi. Sometimes that's a hotel, sometimes it's the office, sometimes these days it's our own home. Connect back to that reliable Wi-Fi and perform a data sync. The data sync is a two-way sync. It both pushes the data held on your device while you were disconnected out to that hosted map service in that enterprise portal, but it also pulls in updates to your map. So it's really important to have that data sync happen. And in fact, we often recommend a sync happening before leaving the office, somewhere around between this download map area and disconnecting, and after, just to keep that map synchronized. But the Field Maps application is specifically designed for this workflow. It can sure be handy out in some rural areas, even if you have the use of an iPhone with a cellular data plan, and even if everything usually works really well, sometimes you get out there and you just are not near cell towers. So it's a really helpful tool to know about. and we encourage the use of it. It puts the power of that data sync in the user's hands rather than just when the device is deciding to do things. So this is just a quick little overview of how that works, and we love to kind of make sure that you're aware of that. Trapping workflows. The way the field maps application and the data form is designed is to view a first visit to a location as placing a trap. And this is something that's a little bit different from last year. They threw in placing a trap and then making a trap activity as installing it. This year, this first visit to the location indicates placing a trap, including installing the trap. So placing the trap is a form that pops in and asks you to fill out and includes a field that says install date, which is the date of that first visit, which just infers you are installing the trap on your first visit. And that first visit places a point, including a symbol, on the map. And then all future visits to that trap site are trap activities, such as monitoring or maybe reporting it's missing or replacing a lure or anything like that. Those are all trap activities. Those are all future visits. And every time you revisit that trap and perform an activity, even if it's just monitoring it, that data has to be entered as well. So the first visit to a location is placing a trap. And any future visits are a trap activity. That trap activity has to be entered in a form on the trap activity table, or it didn't happen. Or, I mean, and you want credit for a visit. So be sure that when you visit a trap and you perform an activity, that trap activity is being recorded. So this is the main kind of data flow for a trapping workflow using the field maps application. I'll show you what I mean in just a minute. But there's a couple other workflows that sometimes come into play that can be pretty confusing. This is the simple version, but let's say you need to relocate a trap. So then we have to think a little deeper. There are two data edits to that original location that might seem obvious, but need to be recorded. So the first edit would be, there's a trap activity involved, which is remove. So you will have to go on that original location, record a trap activity of remove. You'll also need to, on that main place a trap, on the main data form, update the trap status from active to inactive. It's no longer active. So those two data edits need to be entered on the original location. And then I got this little dotted line, like imagine yourself physically walking to the new location, or maybe driving, whichever. And then you can perform that original place a trap workflow where you fill out that form and you place an actual physical location on the map and a symbol for that trap location. But a lot of folks think if they remove a trap that symbol should also be removed from the map. And in fact, it does not remove the symbol on the map, and completing the steps doesn't remove that symbol. Even if you hit remove, it's correct and very important to the data capture that the entire history of that trap location is recorded and retained. So the trap status symbol might change from active to inactive. You'll see a different symbol there for inactive, but that trap symbol should stay on the map with the last trap activity of remove, and that's important. So we never want to see a trap symbol disappear. This can be kind of confusing when you're relocating a trap specifically, but it also applies at the end of the year. It's pretty similar. At the end of the season, the process would be to remove all of the traps. So each trap would have a trap activity of remove, and each trap would have an updated trap status of inactive. At the end of a season, it's a very similar idea. We're not relocating it, but we want to remove that trap as the last trap activity and make the trap status updated to inactive. So this can be a little confusing too. I'll show you what that looks like. And in fact, that really does get me to the point where I can show you. I'm going to pull up a camera here. Any questions so far from the group? I'm kind of reminded of, I think back to when someone throws a term at you and you don't know what it means, and that can be the scary part, and it turns out to be pretty simple. I'm thinking back to my dad teaching me how to drive a stick shift car. And he used to say he wanted to teach me how to drive it, and I got pretty far, which is where you all are now. You're pretty far. It's like little nuances and little tricks that you're learning now. But he was teaching me how to, if maybe your starter was out and you couldn't start the car with the key, that with a clutch, what you can do is get someone to push you. It's like a push start idea. If you start getting to a rolling speed of about first or second gear, you can actually put the car in gear. And then he would scream at me, "Pop the clutch, Jenny, pop the clutch." And I had no idea what that meant. So I'd roll and roll and roll, and he'd be like, "Let the clutch go." "Oh, that's what you mean. Let it go." So let it, pull the clutch, just take your foot off the clutch, and the car would start in that gear like magic. So it was a really cool trick he was trying to teach me, but the term he used was really not coming through. So if I'm saying anything that you're like, "That's not how I call it," or "I don't understand it that way," please feel free to interrupt. I appreciate it, and I understand. I understand what that's like. So I'm going to go ahead and pull up my camera view. And this is good, fully charged. This is my fully charged PPQ configured iPad. And I'm going to show you on the iPad, but I also have my my iPhone here ready to show you as well. It's just a smaller screen, and I do want you to see the difference. But you all are very welcome to open up your device and follow along. I'd like you to watch first, and then just let me give you the go ahead to try. But what I'm going to do is show you, first of all, for PPQ iPads, what we've got are these survey apps, and I can see among them there's field maps. And I'm going to go ahead and just tap field maps to open it. Same thing on the iPhone. Nothing fancy here. And field maps pulls me right into the last map I was in. So I'm going to go back twice to the main page. And I know already myself that I signed into that stage URL, but there are a couple of signs here as well. I can see a multitude of offline areas that I've downloaded, and you can see the title there is training, all caps. The thumbnail itself has the word training, all of these. So none of these maps would be present if I was in the official data collection enterprise site. But if I'm not sure, I can go to this profile menu, scroll on up, and sign out. And if you are unsure in any way, remember, when in doubt, sign out. So this is how you would sign out. I know I'm in the right one. I also have present here this group, PPQ End User Tools Training. This is where PPQ End User Tools shares all of their training maps. And so you can join this. There were some instructions given out to you to just join this yourself, and you would have access to all of the training maps. Because today we're going to talk about European gypsy moth, I have already downloaded an offline area here for European gypsy moth. So I'm going to go ahead and open that. And here's my downloaded area. Now I'm in Colorado, so things are a little bit different here, but if you open the map to your area, you'll see everything the same except for the streets. This is my neighborhood, and you can see I've been playing around. I have some active and inactive trap sites, and this is totally fine to do because, again, I can check and see I am in the training map, so I can play in this. I'm checking this over and over again, really just to dig it into you all. A couple things up along the top. This is my sync button. And if I tap that, I've got auto sync off. It's disabled. And I do want that. And I have no pending edits here to sync. And I haven't pressed this button, looks like, for 5 days. I haven't been in this map and added anything that needed a synchronization for some time. But this is a great update for you all. And then this second icon is the layers menu. And you can see we have the current 2022, again, training, training, training everywhere. Hints, 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 this is okay to play in. The current 2022 European gypsy moth trap sites is automatically defaulted to on, but there is a reference layer for last year, which is defaulted to off. And just to toggle it back on, I can go ahead and do that. Since I have both selected now, if I go to this 3-dot or overflow menu and look at the legend, I can see what symbology I would see for these two layers. So this legend will show the symbology as it might show up on your map based on the layers you have visible. So we have these two. And then also in this overflow menu, we have a markup layer. And you might have noticed that in the layers menu as well. This is the one feature that is now new to field maps, which you can actively use now if you want to. I do have some things marked in this markup layer just to kind of show you. There's a little symbol here, which I don't have any notes on, but I could add a label to. I've got a little area here, which I could add notes and say, maybe it's a good spot for lunch. I can think of a lot of options that might be really useful. Maybe marking dogs in yards or things like that. Anything pertaining to trapping. But there's two things that are important to note about using this markup layer. Number one, it is not an official data collection layer. It is not official. So anything in this markup layer is unofficial notes or private. And number two, it lives on your device. It is private to you unless shared. And I've remained connected to Wi-Fi on purpose so that I could show you the share button here. And I can either screenshot the view or I can share the entire markup layer. And I can upload it to ArcGIS Enterprise. I'm signed into the stage or training portal, which means that's where it will be shared, or any of these options here that might be a way for you to share. So unless it is shared, it lives on your device. So definitely play with it, and we'd all love to hear if you find a way that really proves helpful in the field. But remember those two caveats on the markup layer. It's not an official data collection layer. And secondly, it lives on the device. It's like writing in your diary, or, you know, I consider it like a private notebook, really, unless you share it. Okay, so that's the markup layer. So to add data to add data is an add button here at the bottom right corner. So add to add. And you just go ahead and tap that add button, and you're presented with whether this is an active or inactive trap that you are placing. Remember, this is the place the trap step. I'm going to say active. I happen to be in my basement, so not really meeting GPS accuracy, but you have a little warning here and it's giving me a red circle around my location. A lot of times I hit that over time, but you should have a blue circle and some blue writing here, and everything should look pretty good. I'm going to go ahead and move this away from myself for the sake of demonstration so you can see the point, and I'm going to add the point there. So you can see there's the point added. And then we've got a form here with asterisks indicating required fields, with some notes here as far as entry hints, some default values. In your case, you might want to change that from the default of USDA APHIS to a state cooperator. I'm going to leave mine as APHIS. And you go ahead and fill these all out. I'm going to go ahead and do my fast fill out business, even though this is not according to survey protocol. You would want to follow that survey protocol. I'm going to go ahead and choose from the list of trap types here. And you're probably cringing at the options I'm choosing. Oh, here's one for you. For you TDA inspectors, you have a standard trap type and lure. So let's choose those, huh? So the trap type for you all is paper delta. So you're always going to choose paper delta. And the lure for you is always going to be string. So paper delta, trap, string lure. That's always going to be your default, even though it's not there. That's the one that you want to choose. So let's do that part according to your survey protocol. That's what you'd want to do. From there, I'm going to choose some options that maybe don't make sense just to get through it. We're in a ball field, surveyor, Jenny S. And site comments, I am going to put in test just for the heck of it, but you can see that was not a required field. Now, we do have a submit button that is allowing us to submit this point, and I'm going to hit this even though I know some of you are probably like, Jenny, you missed the date and that's required. But let's just see what happens when I hit this. You'll get a little message. It says one attribute, and it's referring to the term field failed. And our install date got a little red little kind of messaging here. Hey, this is required. If you had a really long data form and you hit view, it would pull that up just a little bit and leave it right there at the bottom for you. And if I tap install date, it's going to give me a calendar. A couple things, this is restricted to this year. So if I go back far enough, you can see it grays out the dates. If I were to happen to accidentally fat finger a date, which I do, I'll admit, I happen to have a hard time with calendars like this. To return to today, I can just tap this word today. And if I tap this field again, the calendar goes away, and I really prefer that. And then I have the chance to go ahead and review everything I've got here, make sure I've entered everything correctly, and now I hit submit. So I just want to give you all 1 minute. If you have your device and would like to practice, I'm going to give it 1 minute. And I do have a question here from Anthony about accessing training maps. Anthony, you would have received an email that tells you how to access training maps for yourself. They are all held in that group, PPQ End User Tools training, and you can add yourself to that group. So you would have had pre-instructions on how to do that, but I'm happy to send that out to you again. And in the meantime, I'm also going to open up my iPhone while you all are practicing that and give you that view. I'm going to set it right on top there. So I'm loading field maps. I'm going to go back again. I'm going to open this European gypsy moth map, and there's the same view of my area, and there's that same little plus button. And the only difference really is that in order to see this form, I'm going to go ahead and answer that. I might pull it up and lose sight of the map for a bit. And then the form takes up the whole view for you. But we still have all those same fields, and then we'll hit submit. I'm going to hit cancel for now while you all are practicing and take that away. But that's the difference of the view on the iPhone for those of you using the iPhone to enter this data. Okay, hopefully you had enough time to kind of give that a go if you were interested. So secondly, that we covered the first step of placing a trap, but secondly, let's say we're coming back to visit that same trap. That trap there we placed a couple weeks ago. We're going to come back and check that trap. So we'll walk over to that trap and we'll perform whatever activity, but we've got to record what we've done. So in order to do that, we will select that symbol on the map, and it opens the main data form that we filled out. We're pretending it was a while ago. We can see that it was 2 minutes ago. And in order to add a trap activity, we will either tap this little link button, or if you scroll up on the data form, you'll see that link button again, and EGM activities. So we're going to go ahead and tap that, and there are no previous activities. If there were, they'd be listed here. We're going to go ahead and tap add. And the default is monitor, but you can see if I go ahead and tap that, we've got other options here. All these options, including remove, which is what you would do if you were removing that trap to either relocate or at the end of the season. I'm going to leave it at monitor for now. I'm not collecting a field sample ID. I'm going to leave the agency. I'm going to fill in surveyor. And I'm going to write test in the comments just to make sure, and I'm going to enter the activity date, and I'm going to close that up because I don't want to accidentally tap something else. And I'm going to review my entry and hit submit. Now let's say I'm going to deselect, close everything and deselect. Let's say that we've come back the next week and we do need to relocate this trap. So remember, there are 2 data entries on this trap itself that need to be done. We will have to, on this location, perform 2 data entries. One is a trap activity of remove. And secondly, we will update the trap status to inactive. And we know it's active right now because that legend told us that symbol means active and this X is inactive. So we will select that active trap. We're going to go ahead and enter a trap activity of remove. I'm going to fill out the rest of this. There we go. So the trap activity of remove, submit. And then we need to go back to the main data form, not the activity form, which is this guy, where we have a trap status of active, and we need to edit that active status. And we can edit, I'll move it back down again so you see that, either by tapping this pencil here at the bottom or scrolling up like I just did. Find that pencil and tap edit. And that opens that main form, that main placing a trap form to editing. So be careful because you don't want to edit anything else by accident. But I'm going to scroll down to the bottom. Scroll down to the bottom. Where are you? Here, sorry, the top. Bottom, top, those are different. To the trap status. And we want this to go from active to inactive, just like that. And you see that symbol changed immediately upon changing it to inactive. And now I will submit that edit. So those are the 2 edits that we needed to do to relocate that trap. One, the last trap activity on that site is remove, and we changed the trap status to inactive. And now we do that kind of dotted, walk your way over to where you want to place that trap. I'm going to exit out of this. So let's say you walked over to another location. Now we place the trap with this add data button, start all over again, right? And the same kind of thing would happen at the end of the season. At the end of the season, you'll want to remove and make inactive, those same 2 things. So at the end of the season, all of these active traps should turn into those X symbols. And if I were to tap on them, I should see in the activities table, the very last in the line of visits, it should say removed. And then it should have that X inactive, right? Okay, so I see a lot of you were kind of, how do I get access to this training site? I'm going to take you back to this link here, the mobile data collection tools, and under general training documents, in case you can't find it in your emails. And then under ArcGIS field maps, access training maps job aid. It's really short. It's not that hard. You just need access to a web browser. Go ahead and log into this stage. There's STG to this stage URL. In groups, just search for PPQ End User Tools Training, and you go ahead and join the group. There's just a little join this group button. And then you will see that on your mobile device as well. So then anywhere you sign in to this stage environment, you'll see that training map. Accessing the official map, which we talked about here, accessing the official European Gypsy Moth map, you'll need to submit yourself, someone has to submit your name to add you to that group, and then you'll see that official map. So I hope that answers any questions there. I'm gonna try not to make you blind, but let's move into caution areas. So we talked about the main official map URL, which is maps.mrp. We also talked about a training version being present, and I showed you that training version in the stage portal, the maps-stg. So be very careful you're in the right one when you're entering real data. We talked about the disconnected data collection way to go about things, which can be done on the iPhone as well. We had to look at the submit button. If it fails to go through, it will kind of walk you through what went wrong, what are you missing, and it will show you where to complete that. Be careful with data collection. I don't think I really have to say this to you guys. I know you're careful, but it just bears one more look through. Anytime I complete a data form, I'm always shocked to find I missed something, or I did something odd, or I really should have done it a different way. So just a reminder here, take one last look at that data form before submitting. And if you are working in disconnected mode, be sure of a daily data sync before and after. That really keeps you up to date, both pushing data out and pulling data in. And then a reminder about the markup layer. Remember, there's two rules to the markup layer. It is not an official data collection layer, and it lives on your device unless you share it out. So just be careful using it. Just know those things about it, but be sure to use it if it helps you. Finally, some ways to get some help. I thought I'd throw this up on the board. PPQ uses iPads that are supported by CECIT. That doesn't really apply to you, but if you are using a PPQ device, you would go through our IT. Anthony Man-Son-Hing, again, is the National Operations Manager. So questions about survey protocol or how to fill out that form, except for two fields, which we know are unique to you as standard. Those are the trap type always being paper delta and the lure always being string. But survey protocol questions can go to Anthony. You've got 3 Texas contacts. You have Carol Motlock, you've got Matthias Marcos, and Douglas Winter, all waiting to help you. And so if there's something I haven't covered, feel free to go to them, haha. But also your supervisor has some options. If you go to your Texas contacts, they might send you this way too. But there is a local field GIS specialist, that's Douglas Winter, and he might reach out to others. There's also this webgis.connect email, which can help you if you're having trouble accessing things in the portal or with a portal user account at all. Really all things training, that mobile data collection tools webpage is your place to go. You'll find, even just kind of looking around a little bit, you'll find things that might help you along the way, but you can also always reach out. And just one more reminder to take this quiz. Remember, the quiz is going to give you a little email that says you completed this training. You may be asked to show proof of it. You can always ask me too, but that's your little record of this is a thing I did, and put it in your back pocket or in your accomplishments folder. And it helps me out too. It helps me make sure that the way that I'm sharing things out is getting through to you all, and the main points that you need to understand are coming through. So don't forget to take that quiz. So we talked a little bit about the field maps application, how it looks, what it does. We talked about the main enterprise URL and where the training maps are held, and making sure that you're putting data in the right one, and when in doubt, sign out. We overviewed that disconnected workflow. We talked about the trapping workflow. Remember, it goes place trap, and then every visit is a trap activity. And the data form, it's very important to enter those things in that data form. If you visit a trap and perform a trap activity, it's kind of like you've just played in your garden unless you really put it in there. So you must enter those trap activities every time you visit a trap. Make sure you're getting credit for the work you do. And then we went over some caution areas, and hopefully many of those were covered in the quiz too, and just really some reminders for things that you all already know. I want to give you, I always take accountability for the way things are presented here, and I want to give you my information too. Of course, you have contacts locally in Texas, but you can always reach out to me with questions or concerns or problems or issues or jokes, really anything. I'm happy to hear from you and make sure that you're feeling confident and that you're doing, you're doing the job and feeling good about it. So I want you to have success.